going, everyone? My name is Steven. I am the host of ACC Podcast from Horizon. I am joined today with the co-founder and CEO of Supra, Joshua Tobkin. How are you doing today? It's great to be with you. Really looking forward to chatting. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Absolutely looking forward to this as well.
Yeah, so I think that in this world of Web3 today, there is so much that we can get lost by, all these layer ones, not to mention all the layer twos and layer threes. And during my research, kind of diving into Supra, the very first thing that I have heard you mention is that Supra is a differentiated product. So before we get into more of your story, after all, this is Founder Stories, opportunity to get behind the mind of Josh here from Supra. The conversation is meant to spotlight the story behind Supra, but also, of course, get into the product itself. So thanks, viewers, for joining in. But yeah, my first question, throwing it over to you, Josh, is when you say that Supra is a differentiated product, what does that mean, both to you personally in context of the Web3 environment that we're in, and without getting too deep in the weeds quite yet, what does that mean for Supra?
Yeah, so we're different than other layer ones. I mean, we're fast. Others are fast. That's fine. That's table stakes these days. That's the baseline expectation. But what makes, a blockchain more interesting is when you can do things that are beyond just transactions. So of course we have smart contracts, but even smart contracts, they're kind of limited in scope in what they can do without access to Oracle data. Right? Oracle like price feed or stock prices or economics data, etc. But so that's a good step forward. But to really build a differentiated product that is actually that there's product market fit for the following already: layer one, oracles, cross-chain communication. These already have major ecosystems and protocols in that field, but also automation. This is something that's important for folks to know. Blockchains don't trigger themselves. Something or someone, a bot or a transaction, has to trigger this activity to happen. So automation lacks. And as a result, you have a blockchain that's passive. It's not proactive, right? It's not responsive. It's not reactive in real time in the same block if the conditions are met. So this actually introduces a lot of latency, but also it introduces dependencies on external systems, which introduce vulnerability and latency. So it's slower too. It's less secure and slower. And yet, right now what everyone's doing in the industry is they're just kind of stitching together different protocols and services from different teams to make this work. Supra, our point of view is just simply, if a single blockchain, the network of nodes has enough compute and bandwidth, and they can do more than one thing, and there's a clever network architecture to facilitate that, then you should, meaning it really just comes down to it on, do the machines and the network have enough compute and bandwidth? And if the answer is yes, then it's actually more secure because it's a single network that's shuffling around and has shared security. And we are still talking about, like, our existing network is over 150 nodes. We can scale it. In our test, we've scaled it to beyond 300 nodes, up to 500 nodes in the past. And but just for our phase today, we're at around 150 nodes. Actually, it's closer to 180, but anyways, that range. So a single network has enough compute and bandwidth to do more than one thing than they should. Shared security, single token model, lower latency because these are not calling out to another network. A lot of these services are constantly running, right? And then when you have these things happening in real time and available as enshrined infrastructure services, smart contract platform, access to Oracle data, and beyond. By the way, we have an AI threshold. We call it Threshold AI Oracle, or TAO, TAO, which is actually a way to get reasoning and AI capabilities into a blockchain. That's something I definitely want to talk about because it's wild. Long story
Yeah.
short, we're differentiated because it's full stack. That's basically what we're doing, whereas other blockchains are just one layer.
That's great. And you did a really great job covering a lot of different bases that we may retouch on today. Some of them will be out there in the white paper and the website and the Twitter page, which of course is X now, which I still feel like I always have to say Twitter and X just so we're clear. But I must say that the idea of a differentiated product genuinely excited me. I've done several of these interviews, even before I was with Appetize and I had a podcast. And my goal is always respectfully, why should anybody care? And I know that you care. I know that there are, hundreds and thousands of people, especially in this niche, that care a whole lot. And the thing that in my research was different when I began digging into Supra was that through learning what differentiates Supra from other layer one blockchains, I better understood what different pain points, what different hangups just just exist in the world of blockchain. I come from a background of finance. I'm an artist as well. I make music, I shoot photos, all this stuff. So when it comes to wrapping my mind around some of these intricate and in-depth conversations about Web3 and computer science and cryptography, I just immediately just feel so like deer in headlights, feeling like I'm never gonna understand some of these things. But whenever I came to begin learning about Supra, hearing about some of these different pain points like oracles, and how you mentioned how we talk about a world computer, but a lot of these things aren't automated. To me, what excited me and led me literally to dive deeper into Supra was just, I feel like by laying out really what differentiates Supra led me to understand, these pain points, but also like just what makes a blockchain run. And like that's really cool, and I think that those are the conversations that need to be facilitated, and the questions need to be asked, like, what are, if then, functions, and why aren't those included in some of these other blockchains, which I'm sure we could, have a long conversation just answering a question like that. But for the time being, I didn't want to steal away your thunder in the intro. But as you said, Supra is an all-in-one blockchain, full vertical integration. Sounds like you guys don't have any dependency, and you've been building it that way since the very beginning. Everything you need is in your stack, so there are no reasons to go searching anywhere. And this really will have great impacts on latency, on how quickly transactions move, how quickly some of these automations can be triggered, and that's all going to impact the end user. And for the time being, I want to direct it to the end user themselves, because when you say it's a differentiated product, you say some people may have not even heard of this before. Kind of a almost like a gotcha question that I hope helps myself learn more and everybody else is, okay, so we haven't seen a product such that Super brings to the table quite yet. So could one argue that that's because you guys are solving a problem that just, hasn't been experienced, or people haven't been having to deal with some of these downsides quite yet? Because it's a new product, as you say. So how come people haven't seen this solution quite yet? Is it not quite a problem? How far into the future are you guys kind of seeing this solution really being required? Because it sounds like right now it may not be something that people are quite in front of yet. So I know I threw a lot over to you. Feel free to tangent off anything I just said or elaborate on the question itself.
Yeah, no, it is a good question. And basically, you know, especially when you talk to venture capitalists, you actually don't want to have no competitors doing what you're doing. That's a bad sign, because it means like you're doing something that maybe no one thinks is a good idea.
Yeah,
You do want to have some others that have come to the same conclusions as you. Now, in our case, the good news is what we were putting together, each of their individual components have product market fit. So our assumption is that the system with each of the components together is going to have product market fit. And so what I mean by that is we have product market fit for layer ones, smart contract platforms. We also have smart product market fit for oracles, Chainlink, others, right? We have product market fit for cross-chain communication, layer zero. across others, and automation, Gelato, and Chainlink, as well as randomness, which is usually an Oracle problem, but also even Aptos has rolled out their randomness solution. So this trend of vertical integration hasn't been done because it's been difficult, and also our industry is pretty new. We have to create custom protocols for every module, like every service. You can almost view Supra as a decentralized microservice architecture with the way that we organize the nodes into clans. Different clans can be doing different things. So, a single system that can handle multiple services, for example, each of these microservices, whether it's Oracle, execution of smart contracts, different virtual machines, um, verifiable compute, these things can actually work on a subset of the network with different guarantees, as well as, but specifically, uh, different security parameters that are required to run this smart contract platform as a network for a smart contract platform. Each of the individual services can actually run with faster than the whole entire network while still maintaining the network-wide security. So this allows a single network to be running multiple services at the same time. So basically, my answer to your question, which is a good question, is that it hasn't been done, and no one's really quite doing it yet because it's a difficult problem, first of all. But we are seeing a trend towards this. While Super has been very deliberate about this and feels very strongly this is the end game and very natural evolution of the technology to vertically integrate, we are seeing instances of this by, for example, I mentioned Aptos is rolling out their VRF, their on-chain randomness. Sui has rolled out their storage solution, right? And others are working on other things like cross-chain communication as well. More or less, others are realizing that vertical integration makes sense if there's enough bandwidth and compute. Supra is rolling out layer one smart contract platform with on-chain randomness, cross-chain communication, automation, price feed data, access to AI. We are also, just so everyone knows, have been for quite some time also designing a storage network. So that all the decentralized nodes running the layer one can also be participating in storage, right? So this is basically, we all ultimately look the same, is what I'm trying to say. But I think Supra has the lead because we've been deliberate about our network design to facilitate vertical integration. You could even argue different layer twos and that are, you know, um, talking to other modular components like a data availability layer or, an Oracle or whatever.
Mhm.
You could argue that that leads to more innovation. The thing is, they are actually, just by the nature of the architecture of a single different disparate network per service, always will introduce latency, always will introduce weaker security, more tokens to juggle, and it's more expensive. So, what we think is that Supra, while it's built as a monolithic kind of vertical integrated stack, each of these components themselves are modules, and those algorithms can be updated if there's something better out there, for example, right? If it's open source and we can adopt it, we'll probably try to improve it. We probably will be able to improve it. But so far, for our Oracle protocol, our on-chain randomness protocol, our automation protocol, cross-chain communication protocol, we feel strongly that these are actually the better designs. So I know this is very contrarian to say, but it is possible for a single expert team to design better protocols, and these systems than, frankly, 99% of the others.
Mhm.
That said, 1% out of 1,000 experiments is still a lot, right? So I wouldn't say that we're number one in everything, but I would say we're top 10 in everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love those responses. And you touched on so many different things that I hope we'll have a chance to dive a little bit more deeper into the tech side of things. I got a little bit lost in the excitement talking to you and showing you my excitement about learning about Supra. But something that I was first interacting with from Supra was a video that you have pinned on the Twitter account, on the X account. And it's a video you're giving a keynote. And something first you said that really kind of led me to think more was that it was something that other people on the stage, like, it's a different perspective than them. And that immediately got me thinking, like, well, not only what is Super building? I want to dive in deeper, but I'm curious, and it's a question to you. Like, what are people focused on right now in the space? Like, what? I think that there's a lot of conversations about what people are trying to solve, but especially a keynote address that you were giving. Like, what are a lot of people focused on in the space right now? Is kind of a curiosity of mine, and I think that'll help to even focus deeper on what differentiates Supra. Is you're bringing something new to the table. Like, what's everybody else doing?
Yeah. So for a lot of last year, the focus was a lot primarily on modular blockchains. Use a layer 2, layer 3, use a data availability solution, use a cross-chain communication solution, so on and so forth. Different modules stitched together. Now that's starting to, as this Ethereum is realizing the L2 strategy may not be the best strategy, it's taking developers as well as on-chain activity away from the layer 1 itself. And it seems like Ethereum is kind of trying to scale the layer 1 now, right? So the conversations about scaling layer 1s is a big one.
Hmm.
Solana has made a change or proposed change to their core algorithm, which is a major overhaul, completely different than proof of history. Actually, the direction that they're looking towards is closer to what Super is already doing.
Okay. Yeah.
And some of their optimizations will apply to our moonshot consensus. So this is why I'm saying, like, we're all going to be super fast,
Yeah.
right? But there is a focus recently on layer 1 scaling as well as vertical integration starting to happen. So others are kind of focusing on vertical integration in terms of like even vertically integrating applications. A lot of the talk today is around Hyperliquid, right? So Hyperliquid actually under the hood has layer 1. They have an Oracle. They have a crosschain, or they're working with a crosschain bridge, a different project, I guess. And they have, I think automation, but it's kind of centralized. Actually,
Hmm.
almost all these, things are centralized though. So I'm very confident that our consensus algorithms, or Oracle protocol, our cross-chain communication protocol, automation protocols are actually much definitely the state of the art over what they're doing. Nonetheless, what they're doing is still an instance of vertical integration, and they also added on top of this infrastructure stack the perp decks. So they integrate the application layer as well to some degree, which is obviously working very well. Some might argue that they're not necessarily a decentralized exchange.
Mm.
I don't know. I think the launch was literally 4 nodes. I've never seen that before. Um, we launched for like 180. Anyway, so but the point though is the conversation is, I do believe, pendulum swinging back towards this conversation around scaling layer 1, vertical integration, as well as revenue. How
Mm.
do these blockchains actually become sustainable? Those are the 3 topics that I think that are kind of in the zeitgeist right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I had this interesting, not necessarily a metaphor, but just kind of like almost like a silly eureka moment. I was talking with a friend just ironically last night about gas prices and about how the need for an asset such as oil and how often everybody uses it. Like, you give somebody a real need to buy a product, to use something, a resource in this case, and that is just kind of like coded in like dollar cost averaging, the concept of like putting a little bit of money into an asset. And it's just a tricky conversation these days because I think there's just way too much gravity around the price of different cryptocurrencies, and people looking at a cryptocurrency and seeing, oh, where was its all-time high, how long has it been in the markets, since its token generation, etc. And just reiterating once again what I've enjoyed about learning about Supra is that hearing what differentiates it, again hitting this nail on the head again, is an opportunity to get a look into what people are focusing on. And that's exactly why I asked about what other people are focusing on, because it's like, hey, like at the end of the day, like I am just an end user, and because I enjoy using this product, I see the value in blockchain. I want to learn more, and obviously now I work in the industry. I have for a number of years now, and I'm learning, as I mentioned. So learning what people at a higher, deeper level, such as yourself and all of the researchers that you're probably surrounded by on a regular basis, like what are people doing? Because like I see all these new crypto tokens, but like what are they really doing? And I think kind of finding ways to not just abstract the blockchain for the end user, but abstract the concept for the everyday person to understand that maybe right now some of this technology is not needed per se, in a similar way like oil, we need it for our cars and everything. But this is technology that is creating infrastructure for a brand new way to do things more efficiently, more trusted, with integrity, and peer to peer, as we all know and love with blockchain. So when it comes to just token pricing and things like that, like my guess is that people like you are probably not too concerned with the price of Supra. I mean, do you even look at price charts or anything like that?
I don't do any proactive trading. I don't recommend it. And do I look at the price? I only look at it because I have to.
Hmm.
I don't look at it obsessively every day, right? The what I'm really focused on, what we're really focused on, is delivering value, actually, and creating things you just can't do elsewhere. And I'm talking about things you can't even do in TradFi easily. So this is why I'm actually excited and confident that where we're headed is going to be a really interesting kind of period. And I think it's because I believe our thesis is correct, that vertical integration is a natural evolution of technology. And we just so happen to have had that thesis for the last 5 years and are pushing this forward. And we've launched our token. It's been about 6 months now. Um, Token matters because of the economics of the system, right? So this is what I mean by I have to be paying attention to it. Do I have any ability to do anything about it? Not really. The only thing I can do is to continue to guide the team to ship and to demonstrate and prove that this can do interesting things that you can't do elsewhere,
Hmm.
which will drive demand, and demand will, that'll change other dynamics at play. Um, I'm really just focused on doing really cool stuff that people are going to love. And what I mean by that is one thing that you'll definitely be able to do on Super that you cannot do elsewhere, right? Not even layer twos, is to have this automated transaction that can in real time respond to global events that you care about. And what I mean by that, just to kind of break it down, is automation alone with smart contracts is powerful. Automation, smart contracts, and Oracle is where the magic happens. You need to have all those things. So you can have anything that the Oracle can bring into chain to be one of your conditions to trigger your logic to do something on a blockchain, like trade or execute a position or whatever it might be. It could be withdrawing or swapping into stables, right? So what I mean by this is if you have access to, say, 500 data pairs in real time, that are finalizing on the order of 600, 900 milliseconds, right? So it's like constant data generation. And, this covers all the top token cryptocurrencies, as well as equities, commodities, world events. And we're about to move into interest rate cuts, data job reports. These are all things that tend to move a market, right? And to be able to automatically change your strategy based off the outcome of that information in real time allows you to actually be faster,
Yeah, for
like the
sure.
everyday retail user, faster than a high frequency trading firm. Because in our system, you don't have to even submit a transaction to the network, and then something happens. With automation, if the condition is met, then it'll happen, like same block, right? So this is and if we build really simple tools that let anyone just kind of build a drag and drop logic builder, so to speak, and AI assisted tools, so you can just talk to AI and like, this is the strategy I'm trying to do. Help me set it up. right?
Hmm.
And it can do it for you. That's where we think that things are going to get very interesting and drive a lot of value because we're creating a lot of value for folks. Now, that's what I just kind of described as, it could be swapping tokens, it could be buying an NFT, it could be um, move part of your assets into different liquidity pools, all automatic based off your strategy. These types of things. And what we're doing is we're really democratizing access to powerful tools that otherwise were reserved for the institutions.
Hmm.
So we're focused on that, and I think my fundamental belief is because people do want to talk about the token. I would say that we're still pretty young, 6 months,
Yeah.
mainnet, and a lot of things are about to go to mainnet from testnet that are major upgrades, by the way. But ultimately, you know, our job is to create products and tools that people really use a lot and that can really make their life better, such as maybe help me grow my assets or shield and protect my assets with these various strategies. And from there, if people actually love the product and use it a lot and they derive a lot of value from it, they'll naturally need our gas token, which is a super token.
Hmm.
So we're very close to this. That's a lot. I do want to talk about a little bit more about AI because we're doing something special in AI as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, Stephen, back to you.
Awesome. Thanks for throwing the mic back over to me. It's always nice, and we can just have an open conversation here. And again, I'm reminding myself of the fact that this is Founder Stories, and we just keep getting lost in conversation about Supra and everything that you're doing. And it's a lot of really interesting topics that I think just are not discussed quite enough. And some of the things that you're talking about, this ability to bring this true automation into the blockchain, I think that that is something that will immediately catch the eyes of everyday users. Something that, hey, like this is something new. And again, gets the people thinking like, oh, like why can't I do this on other chains? Why should I use Super? Why should I interact on this chain? It's like, well, it just makes sense. Look at what they've done. Like you don't have to think too hard about it. But of course, you always can. After all, it sounds like Super is tackling a pretty intricate problem that clearly has been existing in the space for long enough, but maybe people experience the downsides of it in different ways, or they just deal with it in whichever way suits them, which may just mean that they just lose a lot of money in gas fees, or they have to wait too long, or extra long to push a transaction through. And those are things that we could get lost in a conversation about as well. Just the idea of what really matters when it comes to building a layer one, because thus far the market has shown us through exorbitant fees on Ethereum that there is a demographic of people that they probably care, but like they don't care. Like they don't care about the speed. They don't care about the money that they spent on making the transaction happen. At the end of the day, it seems like a lot of people just kind of care like, did I get the thing that I wanted to get, whether it was minting an NFT, buying an NFT, making a trade, and was I able to send the transaction through? Which I went backwards there. Transaction went through. I did what needed to be done. I paid the fee, but did I get what I wanted? Did I achieve the end goal for me? And it sounds like this logic stack that you're talking about is something that people will be able to come in and kind of just build all of these. I'm speaking beyond my knowledge here, but kind of like almost if then arguments per se, or just kind of like things that kind of like release this domino effect of automation. So elaborate a little bit more on that. And then as well,
Sure.
I'd love for you to touch on the security aspect of this. We've probably all used a lot of
You got it.
blockchains, and every time I, make a trade or send a transaction, I've got to authenticate that in one way or another. So I guess how can we be sure, say I build a stack of automations, how do I make sure that somebody doesn't come in there and adjust one of them and make it do something that I never intended it to do? Like whenever there's these automation things going on, I guess how do we make sure? How does Super ensure that those are just as intended by the user?
Yeah. Yeah, good questions. All right. So the first question is, you talked about folks paying gas just to get something done, and they're not super sensitive to the gas price.
Hmm.
That's only the case when they believe that they are acquiring something worth substantially more, right? Uh, but yeah, so that's just one thing I want to mention.
Hmm.
Also, and they'll do it. That's basically the market dynamics, which is actually really interesting and important that folks know that these blockchains are not just computer systems, they're economic systems. And it just so happens that, in that case, they don't care about the gas price for some like hot NFT mint, right? Because they believe getting it is going to be worth a lot more, right? So that's why they're willing to do that. Otherwise, they wouldn't be willing to do it. Now, high throughput blockchains like Supra that can handle a lot of capacity, our fees for gas are as a result really low. And we actually think that as these blockchains scale, have more throughput capacity, things get cheaper too, right? So it's actually really hard to build a business model where um, transaction fees are the only way that the system kind of stays alive. And instead, what's interesting about blockchains is that for those high value opportunities that you were kind of alluding to, why are people paying so much gas for this, right? Uh, in one sense, it's because of the limited capacity of like Ethereum. But in our case, where we won't hit those bottlenecks anytime soon in terms of performance, right? In terms of throughput, uh, people will still want to pay for priority, right? So we've heard of priority fees. And this is kind of a problem with MEV, by the way, and this has to
Hmm.
be solved. And Super has a very interesting way to handle this. But let's suppose we mitigate MEV to a large degree. Now, folks have opportunities that they're trying to gain access to. So we think that they will bid up to whatever is economically viable for that particular person, that particular opportunity, so that they'll pay for priority access.
Hmm.
Now, they have to pay the transaction fee, but it's minuscule, right? Because these high throughput blockchains have so much capacity, these are cheap. But will they pay a lot for priority access to high value, activities? The answer is yes. And this is where you have tips, where you have gas fees, etc. This is also playing a role. Now, Supra is with automation. We have a way that automation is executed at the top of the block, so to speak, or it's going to happen immediately. You have the priority to execute this because you've been running this automation, you've been paying for the automation to keep this an active task that you're monitoring. Once again, as Stephen mentioned, automation is like a if this then that kind of block of logic, small scripts that can kind of decide what to do. Um, Being the first to execute a transaction if something happens can lead to you acquiring it, right? Or maybe that's actually such as probably a big one. We believe is going to be two things in particular: um, automate like triggering a liquidation.
Hmm.
A liquidation in a position is where a position is underwater and it's actually insolvent, and someone needs to correct it. If you have automation doing that, and you're paying for priority access to be the one to do it, if the opportunity is worth 10,000 to you, you might bid 9,000,
Mm.
even though if it's worth 10,000 for you, you might bid 9,500. You can still make $500.
Yeah.
Uh, the transaction fee on Supra, sub penny, you know? So the opportunity that this is what I mean by bidding for priority access. This is where Supra is orientating our entire kind of revenue model towards that. Transaction fees are going to remain really, really inexpensive. But if you absolutely need to be like a top, whatever, first one, second one, or third one to take some action, then you will pay for as much as is worth it to you. And for most users who are not engaged in that liquidation or participating in that protocol or NFT dropper, etc., their transaction fees just remain ultra inexpensive, you know?
Yeah.
So they're not affected by this because we have so much capacity, but still someone's willing to pay a lot more for that priority. So you also asked about security. So how Supra with your automation, how do you keep that secure? The traditional models are not secure at all, actually. Okay. And with Supra, what we do is we enshrine it or build it into our layer one itself. Our validator nodes, who are the layer one nodes, they all have this information and they all run the same set of execution checks, and they check to see if they should execute this every single block. Everyone's doing it. So because of that, it's actually transparent and deterministic. If the conditions are met, you can do it, or you will be the first to do it. We can prove it, and you can rest assured that you will get it. That's the way that the determinism works here, and that's because this automation is actually running on our blockchain nodes directly, not some external network. So yeah, we're really excited about this because it's very powerful. We think others are definitely eventually going to see the same thing. We believe that everyone's going to kind of look like Supra later. That's seriously what we believe. They're all going to want to have vertical integration over time.
Yeah. I guess I'm tempted to ask deeper questions about what we're discussing here, but given that we're 40 minutes into the interview and I don't think that I've touched on a single point that really discusses kind of the founder's story, even though I think that there's so much insight and perspective that you've already provided to the conversation that reflects kind of through Supra. I just kind of want to reel it back just a little bit and just hear from you about yourself. Like how did you get here? I know I touched on trading a little bit beforehand, and reminder, Josh says don't trade. He does not advise that, which I think is a good standpoint.
Don't use excessive leverage. Don't use excessive leverage. Let's just put it that way.
Risk it all on one trade. No, so it's funny. I think a lot of people, especially more ordinary, users of blockchain, are really just solely interested in trading. And I've even met some people through these interviews that surprisingly they actually got their start through trading, whether it was just trading US dollar for Bitcoin because they just believe in Bitcoin. Not necessarily I'm actively trading, trading this, trading that, trying to make a profit by the end of the day type of thing. So I just want to hear from you how in the world you got started, how you got your interest. When did you first learn about Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptography, mathematical proofs? If you know anything about that, give us some insight to what your background is. I'll just kind of leave it open for the time being and touch on some of these points to hear more about you and learn how some of these things that maybe you learned earlier on in your life, are still kind of bleeding through and impacting your thesis and views on Supra.
Sure, sure. I do want to just emphasize that the things that we talked about at the beginning of this podcast, the last, I guess, 40 minutes, those are the things that I care about more,
Yeah, for sure.
about promoting and educating the folks about Supra. My background, though, is, well, I mean, I guess you could say we should probably start at university. So I got a virtually full scholarship to study economics back in the day at a private school in New Jersey. I didn't really particularly like it. Actually, I went to a pretty good high school and felt the first year was less challenging than my last year of high school, right? So I was kind of bored
Mm.
and got into poker. Poker
Mm.
was something that was way more interesting to me than going to class. So, anyways, I'm about less than 2 years into it, I decided to drop out to play poker, forfeited the scholarship, and
Wow.
that was a very I don't recommend this type of path for most folks. Nonetheless, like I learned a lot along the way, and I did a lot of self education along the way. So poker led to my first startup in online poker, and I think I was 22 years old by then, and it was a rakeback, a cashback service for poker rooms. We were top 10 poker room up and coming. My partner at the time was, I think, had just turned 17.
Mm.
He was a
Wow.
high stakes poker player in high school still. I didn't realize he was in high school when we used to play. But he was a poker prodigy. He knew that I was in between playing poker for a living. I was also building websites and services on the web. And he said, "Hey," he was the one that introduced me to Rakeback and said, "Let's do this together." To this day, him and George, we'd never met. This was
Mhm.
completely online the whole time.
Yeah.
Anyways, we grew that. That was a pretty big eye opener. One thing that led me to blockchain eventually is when I realized that I used to complain like we'd be growing this service, or player numbers were growing, but the revenue was not keeping track. And I was like, man, these poker rooms are not paying us out correctly. But I have no
Mm.
other way to prove anything because
Yeah.
there's no transparency. eventually, when I heard about blockchain, um, I'm in San Francisco at the stage. I had worked in ad tech in New York City before that. Transitioned to a consultant, started going back into the startup, like building services and websites and such, and applications. Um, and I got introduced to um, Ethereum. I had known about Bitcoin a couple years before that. Just didn't really get it. Kind of felt like it was for, illegal things, and
Mm,
frankly, it just I thought it was cool, but and I knew that this would be useful for online poker industry. I had sold my shares, by the way, to my partner when Black Friday hit in the United States, where online poker became illegal here.
mm,
But I knew over time, I heard about Bitcoin, and the site started to accept Bitcoin, and I was like, okay, that's cool. They had like NetTeller, some others. And anyways, moving forward, I get introduced to Ethereum, and I'm at this stage focused on SaaS, software as a service, and applications, and I'm like, everything needs to be fast, and it has to
yeah,
work really well, And it was like I had even in just Web 2 world, vertical integration, a single software may have to have a second service to amplify it. So I knew about like building more than one thing into a single platform. Ultimately, becomes a necessity over time. But yeah, so I get introduced to Ethereum. I'm focused on SaaS. I'm focused on speed and performance. And I'm like, this is the slowest database I've ever seen. Why would anyone do it this way? You know what I mean? And I just couldn't really understand it. It really took me a hard time to understand it. And then maybe 4 to 6 months later, the same friend that introduced me to Ethereum showed me her wallet, and she had shown me six figures, and she said, "Yeah, this is like around 10,000. Last time I showed you this." I was like, "Oh, okay. Let me take a look at this again." I hate to say it, but that's what got my attention again. I was like, "Okay, that's interesting." And then
interest peaked.
yeah, eh, yeah. Then I was like, "Okay, I finally get it." Online poker for me. I was complaining that the metrics were not right. There was no transparency. There's middlemen in between, and this would solve that. Like if we had transparency in the data and the metrics in the blockchain for this, then I would have a way to prove that they're cheating, or they're being whatever they're doing. I had no recourse because I had no data. I had to just accept whatever they're going to pay us out, even though our player
Right.
growth was growing, right? Yeah, so that was finally it. And then from there, this is like early 2017. I get really obsessed with blockchain, and pretty much other than consulting in San Francisco, still trying to build my own startups, but also spend the rest of my time studying how to scale blockchain, because we all knew that Ethereum was going to hit a bottleneck, especially in the proof of work days.
Mm,
And yeah, so long story short, I spent most of my time trying to scale Ethereum. I was just going to these crypto underground meetings in San Francisco and meetups and such. I did put together a small group, about 11 of us or so, called the Bay Area Bitcoin and White Paper Club. So
nice.
this is kind of like a bunch of us would just go through different protocols and try to discuss it. Man, those papers were really complex,
I
and
bet.
you had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is pre AI, right? So,
You
I've
actually had
read
to think?
hundreds of papers. Yeah, yeah. You have to read now, oh, man.
Jeez.
But yeah, no, yeah, over time that kind of sparked a journey where I have kind of consumed hundreds of papers, maybe not hundreds, but at least 120, very good ones, and all of them almost related to distributed compute databasing, consensus, and blockchain. Anyhow, so that's the journey. Got introduced to my co-founder in San Francisco Blockchain Week in San Francisco 2018, like January. Um, 4 months later, he said he wanted to invest and also become a co-founder, and that was the beginning of our labs. And that took some time to really. We kind of entered the market and created the lab during that bear market of like 2018, 2019.
Mhm.
We couldn't even get in front of an investor. They
Oh,
wouldn't even
wow.
take a meeting because the token model wasn't proven yet,
Yeah, for
So
sure.
it was a tough time, but we really believed in the industry. So while there were ups and downs there too, uh, you know, uh, we never lost faith. We were like, no, this is what we're doing. We like this a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if it didn't work out, just go back to the poker table. No, I'm just making a joke there. But no, it's something that you, uh, have to kind of immerse yourself into. You have to be kind of in the trenches, as this term has kind of come out, I feel like, during this bear market here. But I know exactly what you're talking about. This season, right after Bitcoin hit $20,000, and in my opinion, that was the first aha moment, at least for a lot of people interested in making money through investing with Bitcoin. And I think that I probably still have tens and hundreds of friends who are like, oh yeah, I probably still have $10 of Bitcoin, like from 2017. And I think that there's just like this huge trough, even though we've had spikes in the price back in, around 2021, when Bitcoin went on another run, touching, I think, close to 70K at that point. And, the token usage never really caught on. To me, that whole run was just another kind of like proof of concept of like, okay, Bitcoin popped off in 2017 and people made some money there. People got interested, such as myself. That was the first, you know, huge blow off top that I was really just kind of like, whoa, like I put in some money here and put it into the right token and didn't exit my position at the right time. But my portfolio was this, I took a screenshot, right? And then, we kind of had this almost kind of like secondary wave of community that was like still here, and was able to kind of like latch on to NFTs whenever those really began to kind of like come back around, mainly through Solana and stuff like that, during that period of time. So now I just think that we're in almost like this kind of like bear market that has always really been there, even though the price of some of these assets, has been appreciating, has been doing okay since 2017. Like, I think when we look at real user interest, and if we are somehow able to collect data, from the whole entire world, I think that the majority of people's tickers have not moved at all off of, why do I need cryptocurrency? What is cryptocurrency? Like, some people have skimmed off the top and kind of seen or been able to, hop on trends kind of towards the end of their runs and given tastes of what this can do. But at the end of the day, I think that there is nothing more to be said than we really are early. And as I mentioned in one of my earlier questions, just about how you said that people on stage have been providing a different perspective, and Super brings to the table kind of a differentiated product that maybe somebody hasn't seen before. It's like, yeah, I mean, like, to somebody such as myself, that I've been, tapped into the space for a while, and especially other people who are researching and building in this space much more in depth, like, sure, they will be able to distinguish, oh yes, for sure, this is something new. But again, I think the emphasis here, and what position Super is in right now, is to capture the next wave of users that kind of are in that category of like, all right, my ticker is kind of like pushed off of, it's, zero, off of nil. And congrats to all the progress you've made. Thank you for sharing about how you got your start. I have friends who literally got interested in, their attention peaked through online poker as well. And it's just one of those things, like, that I believe makes cryptocurrency and blockchain communities so unique, is we all have unique paths that led us here. And myself, I'm in the Bay Area right now. Sitting in San Francisco, so it's cool to imagine that I'm sure that, many of these people that were around you when you were here are probably still here. And I don't know, you probably might not be in contact with them, but I'm sure they're still hopefully tapped in and still pushing as hard as you are.
You had said something that's interesting, which is some of these things don't even, people that are not even in the industry don't even know what it's for. There's a lot of speculation and they don't go that deep. Folks that have been in the industry, like yourself, can start to see like, okay, this is interesting. This is a different type of blockchain. But how do we actually tap into more users? We think that Supra, with its Layer 1 smart contract platform, automation, cross-chain communication, Oracle, and also now we have a Threshold AI Oracle. That's a set of nodes that basically LLMs that communicate with each other and debate with each other and have to reach consensus in natural language. They're sending each other responses in English. They have to reason together. They don't necessarily even have to know they're talking to another AI.
Mhm.
And then they have to all agree and cryptographically sign it. So you can start to bring all kinds of new things on chain. Uh, We think, though, this stack, just in general, is also going to be extremely useful for AI agents,
Hmm.
for individual people that are trying to get things done. And we think blockchain rails are the best rails for AI agent negotiations and bartering as well as trading, and to get things done for the respective human, right? So we are building towards a world. Our bet is the following: we just believe that, wow, actually AI has hit this breakthrough and is a platform that's only going to get better and continue to exist. And at the same time, blockchain is actually like a truth-telling machine that can help AI to be honest, frankly. There's some overlap there. But also these rails are, we think, the perfect rails for AI agents to do things on chain on your behalf. So we think that folks will start to tap into their own kind of AI agent. It'll start to understand their intention and what they're trying to do, and it'll start to help create strategies to execute your intention. And we think that a lot of on-chain activity in the probably next 5 years, might take longer, may be AI driven. Certainly in the deep future, it's like almost vast majority AI driven, we believe. But we think over time, AI agent kind of transactions are actually going to outnumber human transactions by a lot, because I may just be able to articulate, this is what I'm trying to do with my assets, and then AI kind of keeps an eye on it and does things on my behalf. Maybe for every 100 transaction AI does, I do one. I think that's the world we're moving towards. So to bring more users on chain, we have to just build tools that are useful. And basically, let's be honest, blockchains are also particularly good for trading. So growing your assets as well as protecting your assets. We think that those are like the core base product that everyone wants to try to grow their assets with their own ideas and also suggestions from AI and such. Implement your strategy to grow it. That could be yield farming. It could be different opportunities in the blockchain space. And then also upon macro news or Oracle data, you may want to in real time swap your assets into stables to preserve and protect their value. And then when things and conditions change again, to bring them back and reallocate them. So there's signals like technical indicators, world events, interest rate cuts, job reports, uh, price movements of major assets, etc., both stocks as well as crypto, that may trigger an automation to convert your assets into stablecoin to preserve and protect your wealth. And we think that's a fundamental product that everyone's going to want. Everyone wants to grow their wealth and protect it, right? That's
Right.
basically universal. So that's really what we're banking on with this vertical integrated stack, that this facilitates folks to be able to do that, to execute their particular strategy. They may have some combination of meme coins and NFTs, and they're trying to do something else with this, and still the motivation is always to grow their assets, right? That's a universal kind of drive. Uh, but someone else might just only hold layer one tokens and others. Well, we think that a lot of assets will be brought to Supra to allow folks to manage their ether with these automated strategies, right? And then, of course, they can always unwind and cash out the real ether and bridge it back and get the real ether on Ethereum. But in the meantime, you can do things with assets that exist elsewhere on Supra, and apply these strategies that you create that can help grow and protect your assets. And we think this will be a very, very popular product. That's our point of view.
Yeah. Thanks for responding to what I said about the idea of blockchain use case and the way that technology is moving, because I think that there is probably still a surprising number of people who still are not interacting with artificial intelligence, and probably would say that, oh, we've had AI for a while now. There's a little chat bot in the bottom corner of my banking application, and it's hard to distinguish what really AI is doing for real, and especially, like as you mentioned, almost like blockchain becoming this truth machine, and how AI agents are going to be able to interact with it. And truth be told, like I'm still putting the pieces, trying to tighten up my understanding of how artificial intelligence interacts with and will potentially depend on blockchain in this kind of like synergistic fashion, where the AI agents are acting with integrity because they must, because they're interacting with blockchain. So, the emergence of artificial intelligence is a conversation that, again, I'm sure that we could tangent off and have just a conversation about. And always feel free to just interject, interrupt me. As if we're in real life. I think sometimes the internet latency sometimes makes it hard to interject with things. But yeah, I just wanted to hear on the kind of just the challenges that you've had. It sounds like with you and your current co-founder, you guys kind of really, maybe you hadn't decided on the name Supra, maybe you had, but like Supra was born in 2018. Is that accurate?
Well, the labs, we used to be called Unity Chain
Okay,
Labs,
gotcha.
Unity Chain, and Super came out of that labs.
Okay,
So,
gotcha.
yeah, John and I have been co-founders since 2018, and of course, you have ups and downs. I would say the probably hardest time was past in terms of co-founder kind of relations within the first year and a half. After that, it's only gotten better. But the first year and a half, yeah, we went through like our brotherly kind of, whatever it was, and we got that out of our system, and we survived, and we're good now. So it's like, yeah, no, it's been a hell of a journey, but it's really good to have a partner. Like
For
it's
sure.
like not only necessary for most people, including myself, but it's just good to have someone to. It's a long journey, 7 8 years,
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's good to have someone to take that journey with you. Other difficult things as founders are, um, I would say, you don't want to just say, here is the product that I had pitched and I built it. Now I'm done. You actually need to continue to involve it, make it better. As new platforms like AI emerge, you have to think about it,
Yeah.
and you have to design systems where you can integrate them safely. And so basically, the job's never done. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And yeah, and you always want to kind of squeeze out higher performance and the optimizations. And it's basically, I would say that uh, founders that think that the job's done after launching their token, they got the wrong mentality. The job's never
Yeah.
done. Um, yeah, and then actually, there's all kinds of different pressures after you launch your token. So I would say, don't rush into it, and at the same time, just keep on thinking of value. I truly believe that it's just a matter of time before all of our potential is converted into like actual folks creating value out of it. And we're very close to that because the things are going on mainnet that don't exist on any other mainnet. I would actually argue that Super has the most advanced, sophisticated blockchain technology out there in the world
Yeah.
because it's a layer one with Oracle, cross-chain communication and automation. That whole stack is going to be on mainnet in a matter of weeks.
Very
So
cool.
it's exciting. It's been a long journey, but yeah, I guess the difficult thing as founders is, yeah, partners can be conflicts is a very common one, but also just making sure you both have the same time horizon, that we both know the job's not done almost ever, and
Yeah.
like the job eventually we're going to be trying to squeeze out 10 milliseconds of performance. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, let's try to get that 10 milliseconds we talked about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In all our protocols. So yeah, it's going to be a long journey, but it's exciting. It's, to be completely honest, endlessly intellectually stimulating.
I love that. So as much as I want to, continue diving in, just being conscious of the time, kind of breaking the fourth wall with you here. How are we doing on time? I mean, the goal of the video is to keep it short enough so people don't click on the video and it's like, oh, 2 hour conversation. Although I would love to
Yep.
facilitate that for the sake of time and what's the word? Urgency, for
Hmm.
lack of a better term.
Yep.
Kind
Sure.
of looking towards veering this conversation towards its end. Definitely I wanted to touch on a little bit of dev activity, how devs can get involved, and then also the community. But before we kind of really send it towards through to the end, I'm glad that we got a lot of the conversation touched on towards the beginning, talking about Super, what differentiates it, and so forth. But as far as your perspective goes, are there any unchecked boxes from the video so far that you wanted to be sure to have a chance included in this video?
No, covered pretty much everything that I wanted to get out there about Supra. So I think we're good.
All right, awesome. Cool. So, yeah, just continuing the conversation about just your experience beginning from Unity Labs, I believe you said, and
Unity chain.
Unity Chain. Gotcha, gotcha.
Unity chain. Yeah.
And then having this
Okay.
partner, and I agree with you. I've had partners both. My girlfriend. The idea is iron sharpens iron, hopefully, and especially whenever you're building a business, hopefully we make it through to the other side anytime we have conflict. And I think that grows our understanding of the other person. And at the end of the day, like the way I see healthy conflict, that is emphasis on healthy, is somebody kind of senses that something may not be completely synced up. So let's kind of like call it out and kind of almost check each other. What do you see? Where are you at? As you mentioned, what are your time horizons? Like, what do you want out of this? Like, are you looking to kind of like glide and kind of sail off into the wind? Or do you also understand kind of what I see this as an opportunity that is always going to be, this race towards kind of infinity, or just always squeezing out more power, more efficiency, and so forth. So yeah, what would you say to that? I see you nodding your head, and I'm sure you have some reflections there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's really important to have a similar mindset, to be long-term oriented, and to have a reason to do things beyond, personal gain. It's the only real way to. You actually really have to believe in the technology and
Yeah,
its impact, potential impact, in order to weather some of the storms you'll encounter and difficulties both in interpersonal but as well as just there's just many things, social to technology issues to whatever it might be. There's always something, but yeah, being able to have a partner to navigate that with and to have that, I would say, yeah, it's like you have to have awareness of how they're doing, and you have to be kind of synced up on the same long-term goals. If you are, then it's a much easier sailing. So
yeah.
yeah, I would say that's a very important topic. Yeah.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing. We finally touched on some of the founders' stories, and if we had more time, I would chit chat much more about that, just because I'm sure you've got much more wisdom and insight that you could, share with me and the viewers here. But directing the attention as we kind of come to a close in the video today, wanted to touch a little bit on the developer side of things. You mentioned in that video that is pinned to Supra's X page that some of the main things that are causing difficulties in other chains. You brought up different protocol frameworks that developers have to understand and learn. And you mentioned this as a pain point. So you also mentioned that Supra has gone to network with Move language. So kind of just really kind of focusing in on more developer side of things. Why this language? Why did you guys choose to go to the market with Move language? And then you also mentioned that Supra is making progress bringing EVM, Solana, and Cosmwasm into the languages that Supra is speaking. So your chance here to speak to the developers. Why did you choose Move? If I don't know Move language, why should I be compelled to learn it so that I can interact with Supra? But also maybe if EVM and all of these other progress points are already advancing, let us in on that side as well, in case we can start building on Super with EVM, Solana, and Cosmosm.
Yeah, definitely. So we view these, platforms as generalized compute platforms, and that languages are just different languages. Now, like just on your laptop, you could run iOS, Windows, and Linux, right? So you can run different virtual machines on a laptop. Blockchains can also run multiple different virtual machines. And we just want to build a high compute platform that has all these services you can't get elsewhere in the programming language that you like already. We chose Move though as our first VM because in general it is safer. That doesn't mean you can't have a mistake in your smart contract logic, which can get hacked, right? We heard about a huge hack on Sweet recently, unfortunately.
Right.
Nonetheless, for developers, the Move language, it's harder to make mistakes and shoot yourself in the foot on purpose. Moreover, we think that developers from the Web2 world are going to be, if they have no exposure to blockchain development, that they will actually prefer Move. They'll be able to pick it up as more familiar to them than the way that EVM works. That said, Super already has the EVM, a high performance EVM, on one of our testnets right now. And we are moving towards a multi-VM architecture, Move language, and then EVM, Ethereum smart contracts will be able to run on Supra and tap into our Oracle, tap into our cross-chain communication, tap into our automation, right? So your EVM dApp, why should you go to Supra? Well, it's high performing, great, but you can also do those things you can't do elsewhere, right? And the same existing code that you may be running on a different EVM chain can run on Supra as well, probably better, with higher performance. So that's kind of the virtual machine kind of conversation. I do want to mention Solana.
Mhm.
So Solana also is something that we are looking into in terms of the SVM, their virtual machine. Supra has strategies to allow us to be extremely high performing. We're not even done here. We already have many things that we're going to be doing. But also on the parallel execution front, Supra has innovated really interesting things. We call it block transactional memory or software STMs, but we have our own version called block transactional memory. And this is a parallel execution algorithm that we believe, and we have actually empirically shown, is outperforming many different implementations of EVM's parallel execution, as well as C-level from Solana, depending on payload. Even depending on payload compared to Aptos's STM, we have this performance edge. So we do try to optimize every single component of the transaction lifestyle, from the time someone sends a transaction through the client or wallet till it hits the network, data dissemination, consensus, execution. Uh, we really kind of look at them as individual components that need to be individually optimized. But yeah, long story short, why should you deploy on Supra? We'll give you more tools that you can't get elsewhere. Even the virtual machines are going to, over time, we believe, outperform where the virtual machine came from. Like, we actually think we have a good chance to outperform Solana. Even, I mean, in the current state of Solana today, if we deployed Solana VM with our consensus algorithm already, they should outperform Solana. But even with Solana's new upgrades coming, we think we have a chance to still have a better user experience, plus have access to Oracle data, access to cross communication, access to automation, access to something that no one else will have, threshold AI oracles, which can do, they can let you bring things like sentiment analysis on chain. So you can say, hey, yeah, move 20% of my stables into Bitcoin if the sentiment analysis is bullish. And the converse, you could say, the sentiment analysis is low right now. Go ahead and shift 20% of my Bitcoin position into stables, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, and you can ask AI virtually anything, more or less, and then that can be a trigger in which you trigger your automation. So you can create your own custom strategies this way. So this is something you just can't get elsewhere.
Yeah, that excites me. I mentioned a little bit of my background before, but I have my degree in financial advice. And especially as I learned the more traditional routes of both achieving advice, receiving that advice, I should say, and also how to implement it in more traditional ways. The emergence of cryptocurrency technology and now artificial intelligence, artificial agents, you know, I think that humans, especially in this field, will always be um, extremely vital bridges when it comes to onboarding. But I think that once onboarding happens, once the interest is peaked, once the use case of blockchains is better solidified on a much broader scale, having the integrity backed by blockchain for people to use and interact with automation, whether it is using AI agents, artificial intelligence, through single prompts and so forth. Um, Having almost like this seamless and trusted user interaction through artificial intelligence backed by blockchain will open up just a whole world of different use cases. And being a creative as myself, who's also interested and concerned with the way people are planning for their financial futures and ensuring that their assets are protected, like the idea that you mentioned there, like oh, like this oracle perhaps is showing a sentiment is decreasing or whatever it might be, like automatically move my coins into stable coins, because I'm just a human speaking for myself. In the last bull market, I didn't really take that many profits because, I'm just, so excited by the opportunity and the energy that I'm surrounded by. And I missed some clear indicators of like, no, like that was a bit of a top. Like the as much money that was put into the market was achieved, and whether it be by just traders or more fraudulent activity, the extraction of value from these markets began to exceed the overall demand and availability of liquidity, continuing to come in and fuel the at least stability of these assets. Better yet, the continued infinite bull run that mindset tends to kind of overtake us. Um, so I guess with that being said, what can you say about community? I touched on kind of like, herd mindset, and really just kind of want to like give you an opportunity to speak to your community. Where can developers get involved? Where can the community get involved? I'm sorry for, sharing all these thoughts with you, because I'm sure you have all sorts of stuff to respond to, but feel free to, take and run with everything. I want to be respectful of your time, but at the same time, give you a chance to, check the boxes, talk to the community, and let everybody know how they can get involved online.
Yeah, sure. So certainly our dev docs as well as Discord. So you can reach us there. We're rolling out another community program called Project Blastoff 2.0, maybe within a month. And it's a gamified learn earn program. There are incentives for dApps that are launching on Supra. We have a Super dApp competition. The winners are going to be showcased in this platform. The last Project Blastoff version 1, we actually KYC'd 512,000 people.
Oh, wow.
So there are folks out there, yep. And Project Blastoff 2.0, if you weren't able to participate in 1.0, consider checking out 2.0. It's fun, it's engaging, it's rewarding. There are ways to have opportunities to try out their dApps early, as well as be part of their community and maybe get an airdrop. It's not up to me to promise what the dApp will do,
Yeah.
but more or less, wink, wink, if you understand that this might be happening. Super will be doing very small airdrops. We're not really doing that. We did that in the first one to bootstrap the community, but dApps themselves may have tokens. Let's put it that way. And along the way, you're going to get a great education. We're going to be putting out a lot of great content for developers, dev docs, Discord. Reach out to us anytime. We have a habit of bringing in some folks that are actually creating a project that are launching, that want to innovate on like automation. We bring them directly into our Slack, and we can help like mentor in real time, provide documentation and feedback, or show you how to do something. Yeah, I mean, we're really looking forward to shipping and educating what this infrastructure stack can do, showcasing it and making the tools really easy for you to use. Actually, we are both focused on developers as well as retail. Um, uh, those are our primary targets here, and because we're building for retail and developers these tools that will allow them to do things on blockchains you just can't do elsewhere. So, and we think it's really important to make it, frankly, as no code as possible for the non-developer as well,
For
to
sure.
set up their own sophisticated strategies. Yeah, so we're really excited about that.
As you're sharing about these ways to get involved online and get some airdrops, reminds me about the topic of super containers, a dedicated dApp space on this L1. We didn't even have a chance to really talk about it there, but I'll throw it back over to you in a moment here, if you want to talk on that. But yeah, I fully agree with the idea of no code. It's interesting how the world of just website design, obviously it began with, no, you must know how to code. There's no way around it. And as just a more common thing, such as designing a website, has come closer to no code, like it's a no brainer. Like blockchain needs to be no code as well if we want everyday creators to be able to create whatever it is that they want. And as I understand, like this may interact with the super containers, the dedicated dApp space on the L1. So that's kind of what it ticked in me, and realized that we didn't have a chance to really talk about it, but I'm sure there's a whole list of other things that we didn't discuss. So this is my personal call to action to everybody to get involved with Supra, because somebody like me can get interested very quickly. And I'm looking forward to being along for the journey, seeing where Supra goes. And feel free to interject here, but Josh, thank you so much for being here and sharing all these insights, and for giving me extra time. We've pushed now a bit over time. So thank you for working with us.
Yeah, great to be here. And yes, Supra containers are very interesting. Just in a nutshell, what they are this dedicated dApp space is it's as if you have your own layer two with your own token, your own rules, your own gas price, etc., your own community, your own governance on the layer one itself. And these containers, because they all live on the layer one itself, they actually compose with each other. So you have shared composability and thus shared liquidity. We're still working towards that. We are kind of prioritizing automation, but imagine being able to deploy your own community with your own token, your own governance, your own rules, and you can even, you can allow certain dApps to deploy or not. Like if this dApp doesn't fit here, then you have the choice to do that, or you can just make it completely open. Anyone can deploy there. But bottom line is, we think developers are going to love to create their own communities, set their own rules, have access to a certain amount of execution capacity on the Supra network, more or less your own layer two, easier to deploy than a layer two. You don't have to have a sequencer, an external Oracle, external bridge, external data availability layer, but still have the benefits of layer two. We're excited about that as well. Yeah, no, it was great. Thanks so much for hosting us. And yeah, really great to meet you, Stephen.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll have a chance sometime. The world will bring us together in the same room, and I can look you in the eye and shake your hand and hear all about what has happened. Maybe Super will have to get together with Horizon and have a part two, which is a good sign to get to the end of a episode that has ran for so much time and still feel like there's so many rocks that we left unturned. So, anything final you want to leave with your audience? Any major takeaways before we say our final goodbye?
If you're in New York City in the next few weeks for permissionless, come stop by, say hi to us. Uh, if you're a developer and you have a cool idea and you think that your application could benefit from automation, let us know. We'd love to help you. We do think that all of DeFi is going to be reimagined with automation, and we call that AutoFi, automatic DeFi.
Cool.
And so we think there's a lot of opportunity here for developers to do things you just can't do elsewhere.
Love it. Thanks again, Josh. This has been an awesome episode of ACC Podcast Founder Stories, where you have been so generous sharing us all these insights. And rather than focusing on buzzwords and too techie concepts, I think that you've really brought to earth a lot of these ideas. And I applaud you for what you're doing in the space. I think that we need to have more conversations like the ones that we had today. So encouragement for you to keep pushing. Now, call to action to everyone watching this video. As per usual, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, but most importantly, check out the description. We'll have links to get involved with Supra, whether you're a developer or an interested community member. But also be sure to follow Josh on X as well as Supra Labs. Again, all of these links will be dropped in the description below. Thanks again, Josh, for your time, and looking forward to seeing where Super goes, and looking forward to meeting you sometime in the future.
Sounds great. Thanks for having us.
All right. Bye-bye.